Socialism and social democracy are two terms that are often conflated with one another and met with pretty serious confusion. So many assert, for instance, that socialism is really just social democracy, or what's known as regulated capitalism, as we observe in many different Scandinavian countries. But none of this confusion should be a surprise. After all, terms are notoriously challenging to define, since they're employed in so many different ways, contexts, different periods of time. There is hardly a term, wrote Noam Chomsky, in social science, political discourse, academic professions, and the scholarly professions where there's anything remotely like clear definitions. If you want a clear definition, you have to go to mathematics or part of physics. You know, if you think about proofs, right? A lot of people say prove this or prove that. Really, you don't prove things, even in science, philosophy. You mainly argue to the best explanation. So that's also known as inference to the best explanation. Evidence points toward a proposition's truth or a proposition's falsity. In mathematics, however, you know, 2 + 2 = 4. You don't look at that and say, well, one day it might equal 25, which is kind of an irrefutable proof, just by virtue of the nature of mathematics. So Chomsky continues and says, definitions are basically parts of theoretical structures. A definition doesn't mean anything unless it's embedded in some theory of some explanatory scope. And in these areas, there really are no such theories. So the terms are in fact used very loosely. They have a strong ideological component, end quote. So, you know, even though they're challenging to define terms, I think that doesn't necessarily preclude us from arriving at reasonably accurate definitions. So let's start with social democracy. Social democracy is different than socialism. Proponents of social democracy are, by and large, content with capitalism. And capitalism is generally understood as an economic system defined by large amounts of people working for wages and a small number of people who privately own the means of production, such as the country's resources, land, machinery, factories. That's what's known as the means of production. Other defining features of capitalism are class differences, private property, wages, profits, and free markets consisting of voluntary exchange. Now, when I say private property, I don't mean possessions like your toothbrush, clothes. Private property, again, is a small group of people owning the means of production. That's what I mean by private property. Don't confuse that with private possessions, so to speak. So there are various expressions of capitalism, such as laissez-faire capitalism, welfare state capitalism, corporate capitalism, and so forth. Social democracy is, again, content with capitalism in the sense that it doesn't desire to deconstruct the structural foundations of capitalism. One of the core defining features of social democracy is really just a robust welfare state. For social democrats, it's often as far as they want to go, but socialism seeks to go much further. Socialism is an economic system defined by a political tradition of egalitarian principles, democratizing the economy, workplace democracy, and its aversion to power, wealth, inequality, and private property. Again, by private property, I mean a small number of people owning and controlling the means of production, along with mass possessions of concentrated wealth at the top. There are various expressions of socialism, such as Marxism, anarchism, Fabianism, and so forth. Some socialists are against the state, others are for it, others believe the world should be held by all communally. The socialist differs quite radically from the social democrat. Sure, socialists want a robust welfare state, But the defining feature of socialism is actual structural internal change. Socialists desire the outright elimination of capitalism itself. They're also very utopian in their vision. That's a core idea of socialism, is kind of, that human beings are unconstrained. They don't have a constraining nature. They can be changed and ultimately cooperate for the better. So this utopian vision, they believe that one day exploitation and hierarchy will be abolished. Life will become increasingly decommodified. People will have ownership over their work and cooperate for the common good. A good way to capture the socialist vision is in the eyes of the socialist William Morris. He yearned for an abundance of open areas, a departure from the age of inventions and technology, and a celebration of craftsmanship, kind of like a return to nature as well.